Welcome back to another episode of Sports to Suits, where I highlight former athletes that are doing incredible things in the business community. And we talk all things sports. We talk all things about transitioning from sports to business. And then we also talk about all the cool things that they are doing in business and help bring tips and tricks to your day so that we can hopefully elevate some of the things that you are doing as well. And this week, I am so excited to have my friend here with me. Miri, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, and if you are out there listening, please drop a comment so we know where you're tuning in from and we can give a quick shout out to you guys. But Miri, while people are popping in, why don't you just share a little bit with the audience about your background?
Yeah, so I was born in Mexico. Ever since I was a little girl, I had a lot of male cousins, so that made me play sports. And people call me like tomboy and things like that. So I started play soccer with boys in recess, and also in club teams in Mexico City. And the club team that I was playing for actually told me that I couldn't play with them anymore after I turned 12. But lucky enough, I moved to the US. So that allowed me to continue to play, and this time with girls. And that was awesome because at that point, I was able to just like be myself and not have to worry about people calling me names for playing sports. And that was really like rewarding. And also playing with boys gave me an edge, honestly, because boys are way faster, especially at that age. So me training with boys allowed me to just continue to improve my game, and I think that really helped me in the long term. But I played soccer. I went to a couple of national team trials. It's funny enough, I didn't make it through to the next trial because I had a local tournament that I was already committed to, but then they never called me again. So that was kind of like I had to choose between giving my word to my local team as opposed to going to the national team. And obviously, that was that. But I played through college. I played 2 years in college. And then after that, I took a year off, and then I went to Israel on a program, and I played there professionally for Maccabi Holon for a year. So it was awesome because it allowed me to like develop myself as a soccer player, but I also found so many different things and links between playing sports and going to school and college, and now in business. So I love what you do. It's so cool that you really get to see the transition and the lessons of sports, how they apply obviously to us. So right now, obviously, I play just for fun. Because of COVID, we haven't really gone back to my team. My team, it was comprised of people from my school, like high school, that we kept in touch. And now I love Orange Theory, so that keeps me fit. And I love running as well, so I do like 5Ks and things like that. So nothing compared to what I used to do, but
No, and it's totally different. I'm really curious. So, like, how was that move from Mexico to the US as a young kid? I mean, you were kind of middle school aged. So, like,
yeah.
what was that like for you?
Yeah, so that was going into sixth grade. And here in the US, sixth grade is considered middle school. And in Mexico, it's considered elementary school. So I didn't really have an elementary school graduation. I went back after the first year to try to graduate with my classmates, but it really didn't feel like a graduation. It just, the biggest thing was the language because I didn't speak English then. I spoke kind of
Oh
English.
my goodness. How did you
Yeah.
navigate that?
So it's incredible how young minds can appreciate and understand a language and learn it. Um, I think for like a month, I cried every single day with
Mm.
my parents, and they were like, "Oh, we'll go back after this year. Just give it a try. Just give it a try." And then as the year went on, I mean, I did really stupid mistakes. Like I went to the wrong class, and I didn't know how to say I made a mistake. I didn't know what the word mistake was. So I went to my English teacher and I said, "I go science." And then she was like, "What? So you made a mistake?" And I was like, "Yes, mistake, mistake." And with my accent and everything. So that's how I got to learn all these words. And I had really good teachers who were patient with me, and my school really allowed me to have ESOL for 2 years. That's where I was able to learn, obviously, the language. And from then on, like, the work ethic really about learning it, and just being with kids. And also, I came in the year 2000 into South Florida, and back then in Broward County there was nobody who spoke Spanish. Right now, everybody here speaks Spanish everywhere, in Pembroke Pines, in Miami, like Broward County, like here in Plantation, like everywhere people speak Spanish. Back then, it wasn't like that. So I was forced to learn the language. And by the end of the first year, man, I loved it. Soccer was a big thing because it allowed me to communicate without using words. So that was
Yep.
super important.
And it is a beautiful game. Like I've talked to this with
Yeah.
Brian Jordan a little bit. Like it's truly a beautiful game, and like it's all about strategy and movement. And what position did you play?
So in Mexico, I played defense. And I think that was because I think the boys' game is really fast on the midfield. And then when I moved here, they put me in midfield, and midfielder and forward. That was kind of like my spot. With my high school team, it was more a center midfielder, kind of like offensive. And then on my local team, sometimes I would play on the wing, and sometimes it would be in the middle. Um,
So
but
you
it
kind
really
of got
just
to play all over the place, and you got to learn all sorts of different roles on the field and incorporate that. And I would imagine that like you felt at home on the field. So like even though you weren't, you were trying to navigate all of the language barriers, like you probably felt very comfortable being on the soccer field.
Yeah, so PE was my favorite subject, obviously, because I didn't have to talk. And I didn't have to hear anybody, and it was just nice to like finally be able to, to be in a place where I wasn't so stressed about what are people saying, what am I supposed to say. So that really was super helpful. But also having my team, my local team, my travel team, from day one, it just automatically gave me the confidence to be with, we had 15 players at the time, 14 other players who were going to be my friends no matter what. And that transition into an unknown place, completely different. Obviously, like you're talking about Mexico City compared to a suburb in South Florida, and like traffic all over the place in Mexico City, and the smoke, and my family, obviously they're all from there. But coming to a suburb where we didn't know anyone, and I had at least those girls that I can count on, and some of them are still my friends to today, so it's pretty
So
awesome
what do
to
you
have
think
them.
about kids in sports? Do you think it's a necessity for kids to be involved in sports?
Oh yeah, totally. My kids are going to be doing sports like forever until I can decide them, until they can have a decision in the matter. But I even told my kids, they're playing soccer right now, they're 3 and 4, like they're super young.
And
And
that's super cute because they all like play like little ducks. Like they're all
oh
like
my
right
gosh,
next to each other and they're all on the ball. I
yeah.
bet that drives you crazy.
It does, but I'm a volunteer coach in their team, and they're playing the same team. And it's super cool because this is gonna be probably the last time. It's a boy and a girl, first of all. So it's one of those really early leagues where this is probably their last chance to play together. And they're counting down the days to not play because they're just tired of it. They don't wanna go out there. They're like, oh, let's just stay home, or let's go to this arcade place, or place that where they can just jump around and be free. And I'm like, no, but we got to do something that is going to be meaningful and hard. And I'm trying to instill these values that I love, and like I love, like, getting out there, and overcoming those challenges and everything. And they're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, okay, just finish the season. That's all I ask. Just finish the season. You're gonna get a trophy. And then when I say trophy, they're like go crazy because they want a trophy. So they're just like ways for me to get them. I don't care what sport they play, but sports gives you so many different values that no other thing can give you in life. um and so if they don't want to play soccer anymore after this season, it's clear that it's not going to be their sport, unfortunately. That just breaks my heart. But
That's okay. My daughter's the same with gymnastics. Like I put her in gymnastics and like it's just like you're either in it or not. And she plays travel soccer. So who knows?
mm,
Maybe your kiddos can do gymnastics.
they love gymnastics. I have them in gymnastics, and they go once a week there, but he's still like too young to tell. So, and I'm not sure if they're going to continue that either. But I just want him to do any sport, whatever sport you want to play. you can play as many sports as you want. Like right now, they're in swimming because it's important here in South Florida that you know how to swim. There's like lakes everywhere, the beach and everything. Everybody has pools, so swimming is a non-negotiable. You have to know how to swim. And then the other one is gymnastics, just because our cousin they have cousins that do it together, so it's kind of cute.
It's like a big deal, right?
Yeah, and then the other one is just soccer, basketball, or baseball, whatever they want to do. But it is so important because there's so many lessons that they're gonna come away with.
So let's talk about that. So let's
Yeah.
dive into these values and lessons, and we'll get back into the business stuff here in a bit. But so, what do you think are maybe like the top three just lessons that you can expect with kiddos in sports? Like, what are those three things that you would say are the things that you carried away?
Yeah, so the number one, and to me is the most important one, is work ethic. I was
Yep.
always the workhorse on my team. Like I was the first one to get there, the last one to leave, the one who obviously went out for a run or did some juggles on the weekends or non-practice days. Like I was always like, even in college, I asked the strength and conditioning coach if she could work with me on Fridays, which on the off season was our days off, and I was like, no, I need to get faster. Can you work with me? So work ethic to me is the only thing you can really control in sports, because you can't control the other players. You can't control how you're going to perform. Sometimes you have a bad day, but you can always control how you come across
Yep.
and what you do. So in business is the same thing, in life is the same thing. You're not going to outwork me. You can beat me, but you're not going to outwork me. So to me, that's the number one thing, like that you can control, you can be there. And also for yourself. The second thing is overcoming challenges. The repetition of like soccer, passing, dribbling, juggling, shooting, whatever it is, there's always going to be problems in the world. There's always going to be things that you have to overcome, whether it's personal, within a professional experience, or like my son, who every time, well, not every time, we're working on that, but sometimes when he gets frustrated, he screams because he's so frustrated that he can't draw nicely, or whatever the problem might be. So that might be a very small challenge, but in his mind it's like the world. So overcoming a challenge and being able to just work at it. I mean, it goes hand in hand with work ethic, but if you didn't win or whatever, what are you going to do to make up for it? Like kind of having that attitude, to overcoming challenges, to me, it's like super important. And the last one is teamwork. You can't do everything by yourself, no matter how good you are. Even if you're a runner or a tennis player or a gymnast, you have a team in place, whether it's your coaches or people who are part of your team and practice together. So that's what life is all about. It tastes so much better when you're with a team than when you're not.
And
Nobody
there's
wants to.
always somebody better than you. Like that's the thing, is like there's always something to achieve. So like with
Yeah.
athletes specifically, like we're uber competitive just naturally, but like we're
Mhm.
also used to not necessarily being the best on the team, but modeling behavior from people that are just freaking killing it. Right. And so always
Yeah.
having the ability to like learn from people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where also teamwork comes into play, because in sports, everyone needs someone to be part of a team, and it's the same thing, in business settings or in your life. Like it's so much better when you're with the holidays and you're with your family, right? Like nobody wants to spend Christmas alone. um you know so they're
Maybe
your
the
team,
Grinch,
so
but even
right.
then he has a dog. So
Right, exactly. So I feel like we're like, if you look at the pandemic and COVID and how people were like going crazy, and I think that's because we need each other, right? We're social beings, whether we like it or not. Whether you like to be with one person or 1,000 people, we're just like that. So having people on your team and being able to communicate successfully with them, that's like so important. So I mean, obviously there's a ton more, but I just love sports that gives you so many things from an early age, to be able to have that as you grow up. It's so key.
So, and you said something about, so you coach your kids team, even though it's like a little, they're like little, right? But
Yeah.
you stay involved in the sport. And I think a lot of adults go through this where they like lose kind of being involved in what drives them or their passion or the sport that they were involved in. Like, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts around that? Do you still like, are you still interested in playing sports, or are you more interested in the coaching aspect? Or like, how do you keep passionate about, like, because that's a true passion of yours, right? Like, you
Yeah.
can't, nothing else can fill that piece. So like, how do you go about ensuring that you're always incorporating that into, thank you, Dr. Sherry Jeff, um, incorporating that into the things that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, there's two rules when I'm with the kids, and these are kids that I see every week for 8 weeks, and I say I have two rules: no whining and crying, and just try your best. That's all I ask because they're 3 and 4. So like, what else can you ask from these kids, right? Um, so to answer your question, it's sometimes it's frustrating for someone like me to like see the other coaches not really do any drills with the kids and to just let them play like it kind of like bothers me because I know that these kids are someday gonna need to know how to kick the ball properly, right? So I think it's for me, I still have dreams about playing. Like it's ridiculous. Sometimes I
Me
wake up.
too. Me too. Like, I still have, and in my mind to go to sleep, I still choreograph routines. It's terrible.
It's awesome. Like I still get that rush of like excitement. When I used to play, the weirdest thing happened to me. We would finish the game, and I would blank out for like maybe 10 minutes because I wouldn't remember the game because I would go into this tunnel of focus and concentration that it was a different dimension of myself where I would have to look at the score to see what was the score, and I would have to ask, how did we score in these goals? Because I needed to bring it back to reality. So right now I'm not playing because like I said, we because of COVID we stopped playing because the league kind of stopped, and my teammates were part of my high school team, like high school classmates, and it was co-ed and it was 7-on-7, so it was like smaller fields, so it was really really fun. But now some of them moved away, and so we don't have a team. I would have to play as a free agent, if
Well,
there's
if you
any
were
room.
closer, I would totally play. I would probably not be that great, but I watched my daughter play travel ball, and I'm like, this is so fun. Like, soccer
Yeah.
is a really fun sport.
Yeah, it's super fun. And obviously, like I love coaching, and I love being around the game that way, but it's such a different dimension. I used to coach before when I was playing. Like it's not my first time coaching, so there's like stuff I know from before, and I took a team to like New Jersey and stuff like that. So it was it's always been part of me, but at this level, because they're just so young, it just keeps me in the game enough, I guess,
Yep.
but it's definitely a different dimension of what I used to do because I still dream about it. Like it's still part of me. I still see a soccer ball and I'm just starting to juggle, like, oh, let's do this. So
Okay, so
yeah.
you played travel ball, you played in college. Like, tell me a little bit about, so you went to Israel and played in Israel,
Mhm.
and I would imagine that you had to like kind of relive some of the challenges about different culture again, right? Like, you go from the United States back to Israel. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy because I found myself again in the same place that I had been on like 15 years earlier. And playing in Israel is very different than playing here because the level of competition at the level that I was at is like national team players were part of my team. Like national team
Oh,
from the
wow.
Israeli team were part of my team. So we were one of the best teams in the league. And at that time, my focus was not on like go to college and it was like no, it was make friends, enjoy the game. So my perspective was totally different. Whereas before I was all like, let's go, let's do this. And then, and then once I got to Israel was like, I'm here. Like I'm gonna really like enjoy this. And of course you go hard in practices and stuff, but you kind of get less tense about it. So I mean I speak Hebrew, so it wasn't a big challenge with the communication part and everybody speaks English. So it was definitely something that was a little bit different in that regard because I was able to communicate and the coaches they all speak English and the players they speak Spanish as well. I speak Spanish because of Mexico, obviously, and because they learn through the telenovelas, the soap operas. So, so some of them actually spoke Spanish. So it was just a different dynamic that I wasn't there for the purpose of soccer. I was doing a volunteer program, and I ended up playing there because one of my friends connected me. The challenge was in getting to practice because I didn't have a car, and the transportation system in Israel, you have to figure it out. And I couldn't understand people on the phone, even though I speak Hebrew, I don't speak it that well. So they were telling me is in Dvek Tburot, which is the cemetery, but I didn't understand that. So I was repeating that to every single bus that came along in my block. He's like, "Oh, I know where you're going. Okay, let's go." Like,
Oh my
so
gosh.
so it was a lot of the issue wasn't in the game itself, but it wasn't just the communication and how they do things there. And as a professional player, how they pay, and which is obviously not a lot, but a lot of them have to supplement their income by working in gas stations or things like that. So actually asked me if I wanted to come back a year after and if I wanted to bring some players there. And I said, listen, I don't think I can work in a gas station, but thank you for the offer. And I just went
Well,
back
and you were
home.
done at that point. So you quit playing professionally at that point. So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that. So when you transitioned out of the sport, like what did you do at that point?
Oh God. So I came back home because I wanted to get my master's degree and I wanted to start working and like figure out my life. But honestly, this was the second time I stopped playing because I had stopped in college. I had an injury. I didn't think that my coach was caring enough for me and I didn't want to play for him anymore. So I was kind of borderline hating the sport, but it was an internal conflict because of the injury that I had, which was, it was a cyst. It wasn't even like a soccer injury. It just had a cyst. And we went into the tournament championship for the conference. And thank God we lost because I really could have died if I didn't come back to get medical attention. So it was a big deal. And I just couldn't continue with that. So I stopped playing and I didn't want to go back to that campus anymore because I would get like inside, I would like cry and not really wanted to see anyone in that campus. So I took classes in another campus. I studied abroad in Argentina, just to get away. And that was part of the depression that I think a lot of us athletes go through. I gained weight. I was not in shape. I tried to play soccer in Argentina, but I really didn't care so much about it too much. And I would travel every single weekend while I was studying abroad. And then I came back to the States, and that's when I decided I wanted to go to Israel. And after my graduation, I went there. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to come back. So that's why the mindset was different. It wasn't the same as when I was in college and when I was in like a travel team. It was more about enjoy this. This is it. Like this is when you're playing with high level athletes that you're never gonna be able to do it again. So it was totally
Well,
different.
it's a sad thing. Like I've talked to like every athlete that I talk to, it's like it's a such a sad thing to like go from sports and then trying to figure it out. Like Kim was on the show, like she was a
Yeah.
soccer player as well. If you don't know each other, you two need to know each other. But
Hi, Cam.
but like it's such a sad thing because your whole world is around this thing of the sport and then you're done and then what? Like you're trying to navigate what does life look like outside of that. I had somebody tell me this a couple of days ago. It might have been on this show. I don't know. I was talking to somebody about it and they said, you know, in no other profession do you expect people to retire at 23.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like it's so true. Like you don't expect people to retire. So you're done with your sport. Like what do you do from there? Like you go and find a new opportunity. Like what does that look like for you?
So initially, I reached out to former coaches, people who I knew, and I said, "Hey, listen, if anything comes up, let me know. I would love to coach." I was also a volunteer at the local JCCA where I was coaching some girls, and I actually applied for a position to be the delegation head. So not just coaching, actually not coaching anymore. It would be kind of like overseeing different sports. So it was basketball, baseball, soccer, softball at the time. So a lot of different sports because I was still in that kind of like field. So I actually, as soon as I got back, I finished my master's and I worked in like an educational company for a little bit. But then I went back to Israel and I met with my coach again. I saw my best friend who actually lives there now, and I told her, I told him, look, I'm not gonna come back. I have to make my life in Florida. That's where my home is. So I came back. I applied to that position at the JCC and I got it. And I was there for about almost 2 years, overseeing the delegation and being part of the sport in a different dimension because I still feel like that was kind of like my thing. So it was kind of like it was kind of like a new beginning of my life. I went through so much to kind of like stop playing. Like I would eat so much food in one day. It was incredible. I don't even know how I did that, honestly. But I needed that because the level of performance that I was at, you needed those calories. Like I was training 2 to 3 times a day, for long periods of time, and you needed that. So going to learn how to eat, from even like the smallest things, not having to wake up early because your coach is waiting for you at the field. Like even to this day, it's funny enough, I actually wake up at 4:30 in the morning almost every single day because of soccer, because it taught me what is work ethic. And I used to hate it. I was like, if my college roommate would hear me right now, she would think that I'm insane, because I would not set my alarm. It would be Sam, my college roommate. And every time the alarm would sound, I'll be like, Sam, just turn that off. I am not ready to go to like practice right now. Please, I'm done. And I would hate it. I would be the last person to get up because I didn't want to go to practice that early in the morning. I wanted to sleep a little bit more. And all of a sudden, I'm waking up even 30 minutes earlier every single day. Like, how does that make sense? I don't
Oh my
know.
gosh. Well, but you said
But I had
something
to
so
relearn
critical
that.
that a lot of people don't recognize is like the way that you feel your body in the sport and the way that you take care of your body in the sport is very different than normal human beings. Like once you go
Exactly.
into the normal world, you have to kind of acclimate into how are you going to take care of your body? How are you going to fuel your body? A lot of athletes gain a ton of weight and they have
Yeah.
to figure out they either gain or lose a bunch of weight depending upon what's going on in that scenario, but like you have to figure out how to like take care of your body in much different ways
Mhm.
than you did when you were playing.
Totally. Like, so it's so different than, going to an Orange Theory class. Even if I go 3 days a week and I go for a run, even the other 2 days, a 5 day workout in one week is still a lot for a lot of people, but it's nothing compared to what we've been through. So you like learning how to eat. I literally had to learn how to eat because I didn't know how. Like reducing quantity of like the size portions, and um I can't just eat all sorts of like pasta all of a sudden, because I gain like 25 pounds, and to me that's a lot. Like 25 pounds when I stopped playing, and my parents were like, hey, listen, I think you gotta go and do some diet or something, because this is you're like I was like this. So like little things like that. And then just knowing what to do about your day. Like everything revolved around practice, and when am I going to go for a run, or when am I going to get some touches on the ball. You don't have that anymore. So it made me so depressed. So depressed. And at that time, there were two times. Obviously, when I was in college, at least I had my studies, obviously, to keep
Yeah.
me through it. But the second time around was even like, okay, that's it. I gotta relearn it. And I knew what I was gonna go through because of the first experience. So it's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
Nobody
So, okay,
prepares you
so
for
you
that.
get a job. Like, tell me a little bit about your career, like, because you're doing some pretty cool stuff. So, I want to dive a little bit
Yeah,
into some tips and tricks on email marketing because I'm sure everybody listening could use a little bit of help with this. Like, this
yeah.
is a tough nut to crack. Like, from a
Okay.
sales perspective, like, not only have I sent out the world's most terrible emails, but I've also received them. So I'm
Yes.
dying to get into the tips and tricks here. So tell me a little bit about kind of your evolution of your corporate career.
Yeah. So when I was at the JCC, I was involved a lot in the marketing world, because we were hosting like the Jewish Olympics, and we had like 1,500 kids coming to our city. So I was involved in all sorts of things, whether it's marketing or whatever. So that's kind of like what started me to think about marketing. And then I started to work on a personal development site that talked a lot about different things. Actually, some of it had to do with sports, some of it didn't. Um, but it started like the process of building the website and writing out content and everything like that allowed me to understand the whole process of marketing. So just like my whole life, I lived in 4 different countries by the time I was like 25 years old, for at least 6 months at a time. So to me, the biggest thing was connection. And that's something that I've been building on when it comes to email marketing. The biggest thing is creating a connection between the sender, so it's you, and your subscribers. They need to know who you are. They need to know what you do, even if it's, oh, I've seen that name before, because there's so much competition out there. There's so many emails that you're getting. It's still the best way to reach them. SMS is getting up there as well, but email marketing is amazing because the average open rate is between a 15, 16 to up to maybe 25% open rate when we can calculate it. Now it's very hard to calculate because of the new iOS update. Thanks to Apple, that we're not really able to calculate good open rates. But let's say it's around 20%. Anything that you post on social media, it's expected to get a reach of 3% to maybe 5%. So it's not that many people. So the biggest thing is creating a connection. And you're saying, okay, well, how do I improve my open rate, right? How do I get people to
I'm
make
sure
sure
you
that
get this all the time. Like, how do
yeah,
I improve my open rate? And you're like, well, what is your open rate now? And you're like, I don't know.
exactly. Well, right now it's very hard to know because we are basing it off of data that we cannot just get right now because of the update. But let's say you can calculate your click-through rate, which is the people, what they're clicking on, and you can calculate people's engagement by how they're replying to your emails. So there are ways to do that. And the biggest thing of getting your emails open is number one, to email consistently. That is so key because you'll be surprised how many people have not emailed their audience in the past 2 weeks. And
So,
especially
what's
now,
consistent mean to you? So, like, when you say consistent, what does that mean to you?
whatever you can do that will be consistent with whether it's at least one email a week, at least, to two to three to however many you can create, but making sure that you're consistent, because if you go every other week, that's good, but that's not that good. And the delivery services, they get to know your emails. They get to see how many times you're emailing, how many people open them, how many people reply, how many people click on things. So everything goes into a way of how to deliver your emails. Sometimes you see your emails in a promotion folder. Sometimes you see them in the main folder. And all of that has to do with the way that other people are opening up your emails, how you're sending them, what are some of the words that you're including in your emails. But it's not just one thing, it's a lot of different things. So if you want to have a lot of people opening up your emails, that's great. Let's start emailing consistently. That's number one.
So, we're
That's
going to get one minimum of one email out a week, sometimes
mhm.
one, two, three, as many as you can get out. Obviously, like, what's the balance there? Because I'm curious on your thoughts on the balance. Because
It
if
really
I get
depends.
if I get like 10 emails from the same person in a week, I'm like
Yeah,
unsubscribing. So, like, what's
come
the
on.
balance there?
A lot of times people have launches, so naturally you're going to have more emails on a launch week or a launch days, whatever it is. You might have 4 emails in 3 days. You might have 5 emails in 3 days, and that tends to happen a lot also on like Black Friday. I got so many Black Friday offers, and I'm studying all these emails, and I'm like, why are you sending it now? You still have
It's
2 hours.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So it really just depends on your market and depends on your audience. You can have different, when somebody opts into your list, you can have a double opt-in where they actually choose how many times they want to be receiving your emails, which is great. You can say
That's
once a
cool.
week, twice a week, and that way they know what to expect. So that's great. That's a great tactic that you can use. Another thing that you can use is just continue to ask your audience. And I love the tactic of placing an automation within an automation or a flow within a flow. So like you can click here if you're interested to watch my video series, and I'll send you one per week. So that leads to an automation that's going to be sending out an email every oh, somebody said unsubscribe today for a
Kim
company who
Pop-
sends 5 emails a day. Yeah.
Like,
That's too
I
many.
don't know who think that that's a good idea, but like seriously, if I get like more than a couple, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. Because like to me, I would
Yeah.
imagine it's also about delivering value too. Like if you're sending out
Yeah.
a message, deliver value. And I would imagine like I have never seen anybody that delivers that large amount of value in a matter of a week. Like it just doesn't happen. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's just too much. You gotta also understand your target, like there are people that I look forward to receiving their emails daily. And if I don't get their emails, I'm like, oh, I missed it. Like, what happened? So, and like my copywriting mentor, obviously, people who teach copywriting, like there are people that I am genuinely like, oh my God, I really want to get their email. Like James Clear, he sends an email every Thursday. I love his emails. They're short and sweet. There are people that you expect to receive those kinds of emails. So the biggest thing is being consistent, obviously with value, but also putting in maybe automations within an automation so you can track and you can be more create more engagement within your list. So like I was saying, if you want to deliver an automation within an automation, it says just click here, for a video series, and you send one per day. But it's expected. Like you know what to expect as a user, so that people are going to open those emails because you're getting them. And not only that, by you clicking on links, it allows us marketers and business owners to know what is our engagement with our list. So that's so key because that allows you to increase your open rates. Not just with the people that opened them and clicked on them, but everybody else who hasn't, because then your emails are going to be continue to be delivered. And cleaning up your list is so important, so important. A lot of people think that, oh, whatever, I have 500,000 subscribers in my list, but only three of them open my email. Well, then you really don't have 500,000 subscribers. You got to clean up your list. And that's why nowadays, because of the iOS update with Apple, that we can hide when we open an email, it's so important to ask for replies, to ask for clicks on an email, and to confirm that you want to be receiving these emails. If you're doing a launch, don't just leave people, and have them receive your emails. Put a thing at the bottom of your email. If you no longer want to receive my launch emails, please click here to exit the automation, and you will continue to receive my other emails when the launch is over, because
Well, and
it's a
it's not
connection.
about quality or quantity, it's about quality, right? Like you want to be
Exactly.
sending quality content that drives value for people. And like, I'm sorry, like sales and marketing has a really bad, like kind of reputation at
Yeah.
times for
Yeah.
things like this. But like, if it is done right, you need your sales and marketing team, guys. Like these emails drive so much value because it's
Yeah.
like it helps one keep you up to date, but two, like there are great offers sometimes, there are great promotions, there's great services that you may need. Like what are your
Yeah.
thoughts around people, like, and the perception around like marketing specifically?
Unfortunately, the people who do that put us on a bad name, give us a bad name,
Yes.
because it's not like that. Again, my whole thing is about creating connections with whatever business you're in. That's what it's all about. Seeing your name on their inbox and wanting to hear from you. That's what people want from you. So it's hard to answer how many emails should I send to my list, because I don't know your list. I don't know if they know you. I don't know how many I don't know if you did a double opt-in or not. So if you have a warm audience, if you did it through cold traffic, there are like so many variables that go into play to really know how many emails you need to be sending, per day or per week or whatever it is. And what do your emails look like? Where are they landing? If they're spam, please stop emailing right now. Like, do not send another email, because we need to work on your deliverability first and then work on the content of your emails. So if it's
Let's
a
talk about
normal,
that. Like I'm really curious because I'm sure you see so much in this space.
yeah.
What is your favorite, like one that you've ever seen that you think is so catchy? Like what was your favorite just like subject line or something similar?
So there was this subject line. I think Macy sent this. And it said um something around the words, or like, the deal is going away tonight. No pressure. That was really good. No
They must know
pressure.
you're an athlete.
So that really spoke to me, because it's like no pressure. Okay, things that are intriguing and interesting. I don't like the emails that are clickbait, that are like, how I made $100,000 in a day. Okay, whatever, not interested. That's not what I've seen those all the time. I'm not interested. But things that are like catchy, so questions, things that people like talk to you. Like, one of my friends who's also a copywriter, his name is Alan Engo. He's from the Philippines, and he sent out an email about, you know um himself 10 years prior. And the subject line was something along the lines of like, what I wish you would know about me 10 years prior. So, and it's somebody who
So it was
I follow.
personal.
Exactly. So it's personal. Sometimes like question based headlines are pretty good.
What do you
So,
think
and that
about
email,
emojis and subject lines?
they're good, but don't overdo it. It depends on the topic. And believe it or not, there are certain CRMs that don't allow emojis in their subject lines, which I don't know why. So
I'm
some,
always a good fan of an emoji. Like I know,
yeah.
I know, I know, but I am a good fan of an emoji.
No, I'm also a fan of emojis on the subject. As long as it's like not too crazy, I'm definitely for it. But it also depends on, sometimes the right emoji you could be like it doesn't go, so then don't include it where it doesn't go. But definitely like things that are going to tell you what the email is about, but it also has some curiosity into it. And my mentor, Lucas Rashevsky, he actually has a free course on YouTube about levels of awareness and sophistication levels of a product and like all of these things that go into play to really know who you're talking to, because a headline can tell a lot, or a subject line can tell a lot about the awareness level of someone. So like for example, and I work with them on headlines specifically on like target markets and understanding their awareness on it. So like let's say for example you're talking to someone about weight loss, and also you have to be careful on like real estate and investing and weight loss and relationships. There's like some of the different markets that are more, you have to be more careful than others. But let's
Yep.
just say weight loss. If you're talking to someone who has never gone on a diet, your headline is going to be different than somebody who just lives off of diets and doesn't lose weight.
The
you know
rotating diet. Yeah, no, like I get
exactly.
it. And that's a really good point because you have to understand like who's this email being sent to, what's
Yeah.
what's the demographic, like how do you position the information to these people? Because once again, like if you are doing good email marketing, it's about delivering value, not
Yeah.
sending out a bunch of spam that nobody wants to read, right?
Exactly. So that's why it's super important to know those awareness levels, because you're not gonna, somebody who, if you say to somebody who's just not aware, like in the no aware whatsoever, and your headline is keto diet, um, and veganism, how that changed my life, I do not know what that means. So I'm not going to open that, right? Because I'm not aware about that. So that is a perfect example to just show you, like, somebody who's not aware of diets, you need to start like, it's the hardest one to get because they don't know anything about it. So, and you have to know what is going to trigger this person. Why is this person interested in this, right? So coming up with a good subject line has to do with all of that. So intrigue, curiosity, but at the same time, talking to that person because it is part of my awareness so that I can respond. And your target market is not the whole world. Your target market is depending on where a person is in their journey.
How often do you get that? Is like, this product and service can like be used for anybody or anything, and you're like, and it's probably like that
Mm,
is so hard. You're like, it probably can, but
it
like,
probably can through different angles, and that's the
yes,
point.
yes,
Like there's your 80-20 rule in this, which I think applies to a lot of things as well. But your 80-20 in this is how are you talking to your target market specifically, when it comes to your 80-20. So like how many people are in this situation right now where you can actually get to them. And then if you want to talk to the people that already have done some dieting, and maybe after pregnancy, that's perfectly fine. But right now your focus is this, so just focus on that. Like it's interesting. I was out with my girls, my friends, and we're talking about reading for our kids, and there's this program about reading for kids. That's another example that the program was targeting kids who are toddlers and want to get ahead to learn how to read. But another angle can be people who have kids who have disabilities, and this program is also great for them, but you don't
yep.
talk to them the same. They're very different target markets. So
So let's dive into the mechanics of an email real quick. So like
Okay.
not just the subject line, but like I've seen kind of this like shift to people that are sending emails that are more like text messages. So I'm really curious, like based on your experience, like do you like what are your thoughts around that? Do you feel like the shorter emails are more accepted, or kind of what are your thoughts around that?
Again, you're gonna hate my answer, but it's gonna be depends. It really just depends on what you're trying to share. So when I come up with, say, an automation, I kind of try to come up with four things in my emails. And I mean, when I send this out to whatever client I'm working with, it always has to have the goal. So what am I trying to do with this email?
Yep.
What is the call to action that I want them to take? It's obviously going to be similar to the goal. um, the subject line, and that's something that I do at the end of the email because I need to know what the email is really about and focus on just the one thing so that I can come up with a good subject line. And then sometimes the preview, which is kind of like a subheading or a sub subject line. So kind of categorizing these emails really allows me to like stay on point with the content of the email. And a lot of times, as copywriters, we're trying to think about the big idea. What is the one thing that you want to focus on when it comes to this email? Whether it's short or long, it's really not that relevant. What are some of the things that you do want to do is that it's very clear and concise. Your fourth grader, I don't know how old your kids are, but your fourth grader should be able to read and understand it.
Yeah.
uh, so there's like a reading scale. It's called the Flesh Kincaid reading scale. It should be eligible to read for a fourth grade level. So that's why you don't use crazy words. You try to sound more conversational, that kind of stuff. The other thing is, have separations between the lines because it's easier to read, especially on mobile. Um, and being able to use bullets whenever possible, that allows you to have very specific, and even more details about your email and in a bullet form, and that really helps to drive points home. That is going to be like the most important part of your email. The call to action is obviously super important. I try to include 2 to 3 times the call to action because that's going to really allow the user to click on it at different times. And you want to have some buttons and some hyperlinks. And the CRMs do this, so you can include that. And then the at the end, the PS of the email sometimes is the most read, so you want to include that at the end. So obviously, again, the length really doesn't matter. It really is about how do you deliver on the goal of the email that you're trying to write. And you can do that through many different ways. Stories, whether it's testimonials, whether you can talk about the same thing through different ways. um, I can give you an example. So I recently wrote an email for an agency that is looking to integrate their members. I can't really give too much detail because I signed a contract, but it's
It's
really it's
okay.
the same. It's the same message essentially because they have to fill out a form, and the form doesn't change. It's always the same. So we're incorporating videos. So somebody inviting you through a video. We're incorporating the reasons for it, the benefits, how this is going to help you in the long term, how this is going to help your community in the long term. So there's a lot of different ways to talk about the same thing through a different angle. And that allows you to make sure that the copy of the email is specific and more about the point that you're trying to hone in, especially on that email. Hope that answers your question.
No, I mean it's amazing, like because once again, like this is a challenge for everybody. Nobody has it 100% nailed down. I
Yeah.
would assume, like it's one of those
Yeah.
things where it's a constantly moving target, and you're trying to figure out your target audiences. Those may change depending upon the content that you're sending out. So, like, what are some good resources that obviously people need to call you? Other good resources that you would recommend for people to dive a little bit deeper into to explore ways to improve their email marketing?
Yeah, so I would say that obviously contact a copywriter who knows what they're talking about. You can call me. I'm happy to help. um, but there are other resources. So there's a lot of like if you just Google headline optimizer, there are some awesome headline optimizers to make sure that your subject line is great. Something that I use is Jarvis, which is an AI copywriting software that allows you to use, and I am actually an affiliate for it. So if anybody wants to contact me and buy it for me. It's great, and I actually could take you a tour so you can take a look before you even
I'm
purchase
writing
it.
that down.
Yeah, so it's great because it allows you to use AI with copywriting. And sometimes when you have like writer's block, um, it's great to use because you're able to ask Jarvis, like, maybe write some bullets on the above, and boom, done. Some you obviously have to learn how to use the software, and what to ask and how to ask it, and what are some of the things that you need to describe in order for Jarvis to come up with the right information. Because if you don't feed it information, it's not going to give you information, right?
It
So
still requires human interaction.
exactly, yes, yes.
Still
You still
requires that.
gotta use. You're kind of like driving it, but it's still a car that can drive, right? So you gotta give it direction so that it knows where to go. So I love using that. I also love using WordTune, which is a plugin. And whenever I need like a synonym, or I need to rewrite the sentence in a way that would make sense, I like using that as well. Allows me to really like focus on the writing part. And then I go back and I don't like this sentence. Can you rewrite it for me? Or what is another synonym for this? Grammarly is also really good, but I use it more for like the grammar than for aesthetic, like anything else, with the emails. And um, and any other tools I use are just, other resources that I've seen, that
Are
I've
there any
actually
books? Like,
purchased.
I see you have a bunch of books in the background.
Yeah,
So I'm gathering, you and I are both Angela Duckworth fans. So if anybody knows
yeah, this
Angela
one.
Duckworth, please tell her that we're fans.
Yeah, for sure.
but,
I love
but
that
what are
one.
some books that you like would recommend in your line of work? What would you
Yeah,
recommend?
it's so funny because I just bought a couple more. So like this one I'm about to read. Uh, this is gonna be my
Oh,
next book.
cool.
Yeah. Ogilvy on advertising is also a classic. And but the ones that I really, really, really love, I don't even have it here. I have it in my room. It's Thrive Leads, which is Thrive Leads, is that the one?
I'm
By
taking notes. Like I've been taking notes this whole like past 30 minutes because it's so powerful.
yeah, God, what is the name of that book? By Masterson. Great Leads. Great Leads. That's the one by Masterson.
Ratings.
Great Leads. That talks a lot about the levels of awareness, and really goes deep into the types of headlines that you want to lead with. So that is my favorite copywriting book. Also, Influence. This one is actually really, really, really good. Talks about the psychology of persuasion. And I just got the other one that I think Jeff was the one who told me about it.
Yeah, shout out to Jeff Bourgeois. Like, come on,
Oh
man.
yeah,
Like,
totally.
he introduced the two of us. So if you guys don't know Jeff, definitely find him on LinkedIn and connect to
Hmm.
him because he's an amazing person.
Oh yeah, I agree. And then I don't know if it was him, but this one, Persuasion, the Power by Robert Cialdini. This is the one that's gonna be after the one I'm about to read. I got all these books for the holidays because those were
Well,
like
and
my
I've got to
gifts.
give a shout out. If we're giving shout outs to books, so Brian Cuban's book, The Ambulance Chaser, go pick it up. It's a thriller. He just launched the book, so it's pretty cool. I picked up a couple copies, so you may be getting some stocking stuffers for sure. But I'm going to put some links to some of these books that you've recommended in
Yeah,
the chat because I think it's so powerful for people to like you. This is something you've got to stay up to date on. Like it's a
yeah,
constantly moving target. You can't not stay up to speed on it.
yeah. And then Choose is this one right here. That one by Ryan Levesque.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah, he has two books, Choose and Ask. I was actually part of his coaching group until a few months ago, and he's amazing. He's just like a marketing genius. And a lot of things that I do with email marketing and segmentation come straight from Ryan, just because it's so important to really talk, not just the target of levels of awareness, but where people are at. And, I create quizzes for other people as well because of Ryan, because it's like an awesome way to get to the segmentation through email marketing. So that's also a really cool book. But yeah, there's like tons of them.
There's so much like, and it's once again, it's a constantly moving like
Yeah,
target here. So,
yeah,
how do people? We're wrapping up on time, and how
yeah.
do people like? Obviously, we all need you. Just throwing that out there.
Great.
How do people get in contact with you to learn more about the services that you provide as far as copywriting?
Yeah, so if you go on my website, mirilenoff.com, you're gonna see above the fold, it says to schedule a free call. So I do have free calls that I like to meet with people, and it's set for an hour, but usually we spend about 30 minutes talking about the business. What are some of the opportunities? If you have an email list, if you need help building an email list, and a lot of people just when they come to me, they said that I need help with emails, but then we look at the bigger picture and to say, okay, if you're going to work with emails, then we got to do something here. And we look at opportunities. I don't look at like when I'm looking at a how a business works, it's not just, oh yeah, we definitely, you're doing this wrong, we should work on this. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just haven't seen the other way to do things. So I call them opportunities because it's really an opportunity for you to capitalize on something that maybe you were just blindsided on. So
Well, and you've
I
got to
don't
bring
like to,
superpower. Like,
yeah,
surround yourself with superpowered people that have really cool areas of expertise to help drive value for your business. That's why I love
yeah,
partnerships. Like, I love strategic partnerships for that reason, is because you can have such a huge team without
hmm,
having such a huge like employee based team, and everybody's
yeah.
super powered and all going in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really, the best way to get in touch with me, and then I can send you some resources, or I can tell you exactly, what's a good strategic plan for you, and we can go from there. But I feel like everybody's business is so different. Like I'm looking at my clients here that I work with, and they all have some are working we're working on the quiz and the integration, and some are newsletters, and some are a re-engagement sequence. So it really just depends on the need, and that might be just one step, but there's a lot of other steps that we got to take. So it really just depends on what you need. I don't have a one size fits all kind of like strategy. I feel like everybody has different needs and different businesses and different capabilities, and everything is different. So that's why I
Well,
like to
and
really
like
get to know
you've
them.
you've given us like, and I can't thank you enough for joining and sharing your genius with everybody. Like, I know the last 30 minutes I've got notes written down galore because I'm like,
Woo!
okay, emails week, the cadence, what they need to look like, how do I structure my, like, it's such valuable information, and every single business, regardless of how big or how small, has to figure these
Mhm.
things out. So I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that you took the time today and shared a lot about your background, and also shared some helpful tips and tricks to the audience. So thank you, Miri, so much for joining us today.
No, thank you. This has been awesome. I loved doing this. So thank you again for the opportunity. And I
Yeah.
look forward in getting to know more of your guests, because we all have that thing in common, sports and being athletes. So that's something that never goes away. So
It,
thank
it
you.
never goes away, and it is a superpower. So if you're an existing athlete out there, like, definitely connect to me or Mary. I've got a closed athlete group behind the scenes that I like to add people to as well. So Mary
Mhm.
definitely will be copied and pasted this and that. And once again, I do this every week. I talk to really cool, amazing athletes that have done some incredible things, not just on the field or on the court, but also in business. So it's definitely the highlight of my week. And I can't thank everybody enough for constantly tuning in and supporting. And this has been just such an awesome episode. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been awesome. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.